Hey everybody, we're talking today about 5 charming and somewhat naughty ideas to help keep your sex life interesting in long-term partnerships. So I'm going to start with some of the less naughty ideas and I'll work my way into the, say, naughtier ideas. One of the biggest things though, as I go through these that I also encourage you to pay attention to is as we are bringing new things into our relationship to make the relationship hotter, less boring, all those things, there's ways we can introduce them and ways we can start experimenting with them safely and gently to say, hey, maybe we like these things, maybe we don't, just because we try something one time. Oftentimes, I encourage people to try things 2 or 3 times to really see if you like them, because sometimes that first time, there's so much fear, there's so much trepidation around, am I going to like this or not, that we're not able to fully sink into it. Plus, our needs and wants and desires and preferences tend to change in a lot of different ways in life. Anything from the food we eat to, how we like to have sex in the bedroom can shift and change throughout our lives. So that being said, if you haven't met me before, I'm Dr. Diane, board-certified sexologist and founder of MyLibidoDoc.com, and welcome to my channel. So the point of this, right, is to help you and your partner find ways of keeping the passion alive. So I'm going to go through these 5 things, and if you've done some of them before, I encourage you to stay with me so you can get more. Now, remember, you can always also get my free checklist, my free yes, no, maybe checklist, where you can go through a ton more ideas yourself, by yourself, or with a partner to get more of a sense of what you're actually interested in trying, of what your partner is, and where is that overlap. You can get that at mysexdoc.com. Now on to our 5 ideas. So the first one is, if you are having a lot of bedroom-only sex, try to move the sex to another part of the house, or try to move it outdoors. Go on a hike, go off the trail into the woods carefully. Make sure you can still, navigate your way around, of course, and don't get lost. So, be careful when you do that. But when you do that, that is a great time for exploring outdoor sex, right? Paddleboarding on lakes and finding brush and running into the woods can be a great place to have sex. There's so many different ways you can bring outdoor sex into your life. So that is 1. 2, charming, naughty idea is get a sex chair. Okay, a sex chair is a specific ergonomically friendly chair for sex. And what it allows is for people to be able to get into different positions. So if you're finding some of these positions, you want to try new positions and maybe this one doesn't work or that one doesn't work, or you can't stay in that position because it's uncomfortable. If you get a sex chair, oftentimes for many couples, it opens up so much more ability to get into different positions, or for positions to be stayed in longer because now they're comfortable, right? So that's a really fun thing. And they don't look like crazy, right? So you can get sex chairs that people might not even know what they are, right? They can be in your bedroom, in the corner, and it doesn't have to look crazy if you're trying to keep it on the down low. Number 3 is start stimulating your body in different ways using things like feathers, heat, ice. And this is a really great thing for both people, but I do find that this is a great thing for women in particular oftentimes, because the arousal cycle is slower for a woman to activate. And so sometimes doing these things and bringing more sensations in help her drop into her body before we get too much into the sexy stuff, which makes sex better. Now, to do this, you can get things like glass dildos, for example, put them in the freezer. They freeze really nicely. You can even put them in the microwave to heat them up. So that's one way to play with this. Certain vibrators actually have a heating mechanism on them, and I will actually include in the show notes one of those for you. This can actually not only be fun for pleasure, but for women with cramps, for women that are going through changes with menopause and maybe there's some tightness of tissue. Applying that heat can not only feel very stimulating from a physical perspective, but it also can help with the tissue healing and all that. So that is a way of adding heat. You can get things like wax candles and like drip wax on people. It's a little more intense sometimes for some people. Don't use any candle. You do need candles that are specifically for this purpose. But that's another way of playing with heat. And there's this level for many people where there's just like a little bit of like uncomfort, right? A little bit of pain actually can trigger the pleasure cycle. So, but for you, figure out what what is interesting for you. For you, it might be as simple as I want a feather, tickling my body all over, right? I want to play with ice. I want to play with heat. I want to play with this glass dildo. It doesn't even have to go in the vagina, right? Glass dildo, you can heat it up, cool it down, and you can use this all over the body, on the nipples, on the vulva, right? On the penis, on the testicles. And you can actually see how something a little warm or something a little cool, feels, right? And you'll probably find parts of the body, like the testicles, for example, that don't particularly love these extreme temperature changes. But this is an exploratory process to say, what is actually an idea here is what types of other sensations are going to get you more in your body, more into the moment so you can deeply feel pleasure. And the next one, number 4 now, are butt plugs or anal play. And I've talked about this before on this channel about this, like going to this, if you've never experienced anal play, moving to this very slowly so you can start with doing things such as getting a little bit of lube on the finger, moving the finger around the anal sphincter, which is that circular muscle right at the anus. And so you can do that a little bit and then take something small like a pinky with a lot of lube. Silicone-based lubes or oil-based lubes work the best. And just insert very slowly with breath after you've gone around the rim into the anus. And you start to slowly work up. And then once you get the anus more used to this, it starts to soften, right? So you go in slowly. And the same thing if you try something like a butt plug, which many people find to be incredibly pleasurable and stimulating. Same thing, you're going to want to use a lube. You do not want to use a silicone lube on a silicone toy. That will break down the toy, remember. So in a situation, if you are using a silicone-based butt plug, you would likely want to use an oil-based lube, right? So we want to make sure that we're not using that silicone lube on the silicone toys. Water-based lubes with anal play don't work that well because they don't hold their viscosity as long. They don't hold their slipperiness as long. And you're going to need more slipperiness for this area for it to feel good. So that's number 4. And then number 5 for a fun idea. And remember, you can get so much more information and so many more ideas by downloading my Yes, No, Maybe checklist at mysexdoc.com. But all of these things are really about getting you in your body, helping you be open to experience more pleasure, and helping you grow closer to yourself and to your partner. And so another thing that many people like, that other people can feel like, wow, this is really pushing the edge, but I want to mention it here, are things like floggers or whips, right? So these types of things can be very intense for people initially. And I would definitely encourage you, if you've never used a device like this, to take a class on it, because there are ways that you can use things like this and basically experience like mostly pleasure. You can have different types that are more gentle. There's certain parts of the body, such as between the shoulders or the butt area, that tend to be not as intense. So those are good areas to start if you're using those things. But kind of a fun way of just experimenting with any of these things is to go to a sex store together or look at a sex shop online. And if you look at either one of these things, like pull open an item online, walk down the aisle in a store, pick something up and be like, what do you think about this? Ask yourself, ask your partner. Is there this like interest? Is there this strong heck no pushing away? Right? What actually happens to your body? What happens to you physically when you encounter this? What happens to your partner? Right? It can be a really fun way of also using like a yes, no, maybe checklist to just go to a store and be like, what do you think about this? Interested at all? And you can kind of sense if somebody's like, yeah, and does something like that. We can kind of sense that, okay, there might be some level of interest, versus if there's like, wow, that's, I don't know. An answer like that, of course, is going to probably tell us, this is not as interesting for that particular person. You can also purchase some of these things. Like if you purchase like some of these things, you can, for example, just hold them in your hand, give your hand a little smack with something like a flogger and be like, do I even like that? Right? Again, this is about finding the things that your unique pleasure body wants, likes, prefers, and your partner's unique pleasure body wants, likes, prefers. And the more we keep adding these things and the more we make the conversation around this normal, we're not judging each other and we have our boundaries around like, this is just not for me, and we respect each other, the better all of this goes. But I do encourage you guys to talk about this, to download my yes, no, maybe checklist. I'm going to put in here the massager for the one that heats up for you so that you can have that, because that's a really cool thing to explore. I give you discount codes as well. I'm also going to give you links to the oil-based sex oil that I like that will work well in these situations we're talking about here, as well as discount codes for that. And of course, you will find at mysexdoc.com. Again, that's mysexdoc.com. My yes, no, maybe checklist for bringing more novelty into your life. I'll see you all real soon.